Before the video starts, this is a continuation from the previous chapter, which is linked down in the description. With that said, let's get on with the video. After their brief exchange, Agito and Rolon are back at it. Rolon goes on the offensive, throwing a right hook, which Agito blocks. Rolon follows up with an elbow strike, but Agito blocks again. However, he connects with a cross, stunning Yamashita. He's amazed at how Rolon can unleash so many attacks in mere seconds. Yamashita doubts the audience even saw all those blows, confirming to him that this is a battle of champions. Indeed, the audience struggles to keep up with the sheer speed of Rolon's strikes. Even the announcer, Sayaka, admits she couldn't follow what just happened, and Jerry echoes her sentiment. Closest to the fighters, the referee feels the immense pressure emanating from the two men. Rolon, fighting for Purgatory, and Agito, representing the Kengan Association, radiate an oppressive conflux of their powerful auras. In a split second, the fighters pounce at one another with immense force. Their clash sends a gust of wind rippling through the arena as their fists collide. Rolon wastes no time and quickly follows up with an overhead strike, which Agito blocks, but not without suffering an injury. But Rolon doesn't let up, as he strikes again with another overhead, this time nearly knocking Agito off balance. Sensing an opportunity, Rolon throws a jab, but Agito slips through and counters by attempting a grapple. Rolon, aiming to stop Agito's advance, holds him in place, and sends a knee strike toward Agito's face. However, with a quick, decisive move, Agito launches a powerful attack of his own, forcing Rolon to back away. Knowing that move all too well, Rolon remarks that he doesn't want to be on the receiving end of it, revealing that Agito had used his dragon shot. During the exchange, Yamashita realizes Agito used dragon shot to deflect Rolon's knee strike, and is amazed he could execute it from such an angle. Rolon shakes off the impact, commenting that his knee is pretty tough. He then asks Agito, "How's your hand holding up?" Agito remains silent, shaking his hand slightly. Rolon presses further, asking if something is wrong and wondering why Agito isn't responding. He muses aloud, "Am I talking too much?" before apologizing. "I'm sorry, I guess I'm just having the time of my life in this fight." In the audience, Julius watches intently, his mind flashing back to his own fight with Kano. Glaring at the ring, he mutters, "I won't tolerate Agito losing this match against Rolon." Rolon moves swiftly, pressing toward Agito with a flurry of attacks. Agito blocks them all, but Sayaka notices something unusual. Since when could Rolon use footwork that allows him to close the distance without making a sound, she exclaims. Agito counters with a low kick, but Rolon captures his leg mid-strike, causing Agito to lose his balance. Rolon then proceeds to hammer Agito with an elbow strike. Yamashita observes in awe, realizing Rolon not only blocked the low kick but also pinned Agito's leg using his instep and shin. Yamashita had known about this technique, but seeing it pulled off in a real fight is beyond superhuman, he thinks. Rolon continues hammering Agito's upper body with relentless elbow strikes, forcing him further off balance. Julius notices this and shouts to himself that Agito's upper body just fell. As Rolon winds up for another strike, Agito finally manages to kick him away. Rolon stumbles back but grins. "This fight is fun," he says, looking at Agito. "Don't you think so?" Agito nods, a faint smirk on his face. "I completely agree," he replies, activating his formless and martial arts kata stance. Rolon declares that the time for talking is past, and Agito nods in agreement. Both fighters prepare for another intense exchange. The audience is fully engaged, cheering wildly, while Yamashita and Akiyama sit among them, watching the fight with rapt attention. Yamashita reflects on the fight so far, recalling that the slugfest lasted for 15 seconds, describing it as the most densely packed seconds of his life. Rolon and Agito charge at each other once more. Agito strikes first, but Rolon blocks the attack, and counters with a strike of his own, which Agito also blocks. Their initial clash causes them to pause briefly, before Rolon advances again. Anticipating the move, Agito throws a punch that lands squarely on the hardest part of Rolon's skull, which allows Rolon to absorb the blow, shaking it off to close the gap. Rolon aims for Agito's liver with a precise strike, but Agito blocks it and counters with a sharp elbow. Rolon narrowly dodges the counter, but Agito steps on his foot, pinning him in place. This forces both fighters into a brutal slugfest. Yamashita is so focused on the exchange that he can no longer hear the cheers of the crowd, the announcer's commentary, or even the sound of the fighters' movements. Nothing extraordinary is happening, but Yamashita knows this is a high-level exchange of skill and power. After 15 grueling seconds of intense back and forth, Agito breaks the stalemate with a solid punch to Rolon's face. However, the balance shifts as Rolon frees his trapped foot with a sharp pivot and lands a powerful elbow strike to Agito's face, knocking him backward. He follows up with a clean roundhouse kick that connects squarely with Agito's head, but Rolon isn't done yet. Leaping into the air, he delivers a devastating invisible elbow, striking Agito and driving him to his knees. The blow leaves a deep, bleeding cut on Agito's face, evidence of the heavy damage he sustained. The announcers begin praising Rolon's extraordinary performance, marveling at his skill and ferocity. Meanwhile, Yamashita carefully analyzes Rolon's strategy. He realizes Rolon is using his smaller size to its fullest advantage. However, Yamashita reminds himself that Rolon is up against Kano Agito, one of the strongest fighters. He knows that in a fight like this, the outcome will remain uncertain until the very last moment. Both fighters charge at each other once more, with Kano declaring, "I cannot lose again." Their strikes clash in a whirlwind of movement, both fighters narrowly dodging and barely landing their attacks. However, a single elbow from Rolon grazes Kano's chin, causing his brain to momentarily rattle from the impact. Seizing the opening, Rolon follows up with a knee strike. The strike connects as Agito steps forward, taking the blow directly to his face. But instead of retreating, Agito uses this moment to retaliate. He attempts a dragon shot, but it misfires. However, he unleashes a second dragon shot with his other hand, a twin dragon shot which lands cleanly on Rolon, knocking him out instantly. Both fighters collapse to the ground, but only Agito manages to rise back to his feet, standing victorious. The narrator reflects on this pivotal moment. By the narrowest of margins, Kano Agito's relentless pursuit of power to overcome his defeats at the hands of Kuroki Gensai and Arashiyama Jirota had finally came to fruition. What made the ultimate difference was the invaluable experience of defeat. Agito lets out a triumphant howl as the announcer declares him the winner of the match. The crowd erupts into cheers, celebrating the hard-fought victory. In the next chapter, Agito faces off against Gaolang Wangswat in the finals. I will be covering that chapter, so stay tuned for that. Until then, have a nice day, or night.